Hello, my name is Nicole LeBlanc, and I like to share crafty videos here on YouTube. Thanks so much for stopping by today. So I'm just going to get started by showing a sneak peek at today's card project. Today we're going to make this fun graphic birthday card. As always, a reminder that if you're looking for more information on this project, please check out the description box below. There you'll find a link to my website where you can find a coordinating blog post with product information, more pictures, and details on this project. So for the project today, we're going to be using the Hero Arts April 2021 My Monthly Hero card kit shown here. I will be using most of the products, in the kit. So we'll be using the stamps, the stencils, and the dies. However, I have opted to swap out those mini ink cubes with some Distress Oxide colors that I have instead. So to start off the project, I'm going to be ink blending a background using the stencils from the card kit. So as you can see here, I've gone ahead and adhered one of the stencils down to some 110-pound white cardstock. And I've gone ahead and grabbed one of my Distress Oxide inks in the color Spun Sugar. And I'm going to start blending that panel with some Catherine Pooler blender brushes. So I'm just going to speed that up here as I start blending away. I did want to note that I really enjoyed working with these stencils. I liked that they were different than any of the stencils that I've already had on hand. And I also really like how you can create a ton of different looks with these, whether you rotate them, flip them, or even use any combination of 1, 2, or 3 stencils in the kit. I did end up using all 3 stencils, but I'm sure you can get amazing background panels by just using, like I say, any combination of those stencils. So now I'm moving on to a second stencil. I'm going to adhere that down to my cardstock here once again, and this time I'm going to start blending on a darker pink shade. This is the color Kitsch Flamingo. It's one of the newer ink colors that have been recently released from Tim Holtz. And to be honest, the reason why I didn't use those mini ink cubes today was because I recently got this color and I really wanted to play with it and test it out. So unfortunately, those mini cubes will have to wait for another day. Nothing against them. I was just looking for a reason here to pull out this new color Kitsch Flamingo. So moving on to the third stencil, this stencil has a bunch of rectangles, that have little lines in them. And I'm going to go ahead and blend these on using some Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink. I did want to note here that for stencils, I generally get better success using these blender brushes than blender foams. I find that sometimes when you are using a stencil that maybe has more dainty areas, like perhaps within these very narrow rectangles, that I get a more precise application when I use a blender brush versus a blender foam. So if you try stenciling on your own and you're not happy with the results, I would really recommend to try some blender brushes instead, such as these ones from Catherine Pooler. So now that I've gone ahead and inked on that gray color, I'm just going to take a microfiber cloth, wipe off my stencil, and then I'm going to start applying a clear glitter paste. So this paste is the Nuvo Glimmer paste. It's in the color Moonstone. It's essentially a clear iridescent paste that's going to add some sparkle to my project. So because I decided not to remove that stencil after I applied the gray ink, essentially this is going to add a nice little bit of glitter to all of those gray areas here on my background. So you can see here that I'm just going ahead and quickly swiping that on using a tonic spatula. And I'm trying to work quickly here because this paste does dry very fast and I don't want it either drying to my stencil or drying out in the bottle unnecessarily. So as soon as I'm done taking enough paste out of that jar, I'm going to go ahead and seal it up here as quick as possible. And then off screen, I'm going to run this stencil over to my sink just to wash it off so that I don't get any of that glitter gel drying permanently to my stencil. So I'm going to go ahead and set this aside to dry, and then I'm going to move on to some stamping. So there are tons of cute little critters here in this kit today. I did go ahead and I believe I decided to go with a fox and a rabbit here for this card. So I've gone ahead and just put those on the door of my Misty tool. And I'm going to ink those up using another color of Distress Oxide. This is the color Black Soot. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp this down twice. It is worth noting here that whenever you're using a nice bold stamp like this, it's always best to use some sort of stamp positioning tool to get as crisp of an image as possible. So there you can see my first impression wasn't that awesome, but I'm going to go ahead and ink it up and press it down again. And after the second press, I was very happy with the results that I got. So now that I've gone ahead and stamped out these cute little critters, I am going to line up the coordinating dies. And then off screen here, I'm going to zip those through my die cutting machine. I use the Gemini die cutting machine, but any die cutting machine will do for these. So I'm going to move on to the sentiment here today. So I have some black cardstock loaded in my Tim Holtz stamp positioner, and I've already put the happy birthday stamp here on the door, and I'm going to ink that up just using some clear Versamark ink, and then I'm going to sprinkle on some white embossing powder. So this is the Hero Arts white embossing powder. Just going to scoop that onto my sticky image, tap off any excess, and then here in a moment, you will see that I heat that with my heat tool. So just while I'm finalizing this sentiment, I did want to note here that off screen, I have now trimmed down. I'm going to trim down my sentiment strip, and as well, I'm going to cut down a card base to 6 by 6 inches, scored at 3 inches, and I've also trimmed down that background panel as well. So I'm going to start assembling here. This card is going to come together very fast. So first of all, I just adhered that base panel down to my card base using some foam tape. Next up, I did off screen as well, just die cut a circle from vellum to adhere my cute little critters on. So I'm just going to use my grid mat here in the background to line up my cute little critters as straight as possible on this vellum circle. And I should note as well that I'm sticking those down also just using some foam tape to give a little more fun dimension here to my card. And then once that is prepared, I'm going to go ahead and stick on my sentiment strip. So you can see here, I trimmed this down with my trimmer off screen as well. Have some foam tape on the back. Just going to line that up as straight as possible and stick it down on my card. So I liked as well that this background stencil has those horizontal lines on it, which made it nice and easy for me to line up my sentiment straight across without having to pull out a T-squared ruler. So all that's left here for me to do really is stick down these cute little critters. And so I'm going to adhere those just using some Tombow multi-mono liquid glue to the card panel. And I'm being careful just to put that liquid glue behind the die cut shapes only. When I squish that down here on my card panel, I don't want to see any of the glue through the vellum circle. So being careful to only apply that behind my die cut images. And then once I press that down, really all that's left here to do is going to be to fold up my card and it's going to be done. Thank you so much for checking out my project today. If you're interested in taking a look at some of the other videos I've made here in the past, I will link a few of those here for some more crafty inspiration. And until next time, I hope you are keeping it crafty. Bye.